She said he was just a coworker going through a breakup, but she never came home before midnight. I used to believe that being a good husband meant working hard, paying the bills, and trusting your partner without question. I never saw myself as controlling or insecure. I gave my wife space, let her have her own life, and figured that was the foundation of a strong marriage. But sometimes space becomes silence, and silence becomes a wall you can't see past, until one day you realize someone else is already on the other side of it. My wife Hannah and I had been married for 6 years. We met in our mid-20s, married quickly, and built a life that looked perfect from the outside. I worked in tech, often long hours and unpredictable nights, while she worked in marketing. We didn't have kids, but we had a dog, a townhouse, and a shared dream of retiring somewhere warm. Or at least I thought we did. About 3 months ago, Hannah started mentioning a new coworker, Joshua. She said he was going through a brutal breakup and that she felt bad for him. At first it was nothing. Just stories over dinner about how heartbroken he was, how his girlfriend had left him without warning. She said he cried at work one day and nobody else knew how to comfort him. She stepped in. She's always been kind like that. But then the stories didn't stop. They grew. Suddenly she was staying later at work because Josh was having a hard day, or swinging by his apartment after hours just to check on him. She told me I didn't need to worry. He's just a friend, she said. He's not doing well mentally, and he needs someone right now. I didn't question it at first. I wanted to be supportive, but then she started coming home later. 10 p.m. turned to 11. 11 turned to midnight. And the more I asked, the colder her responses got. He's lonely, she said. He needs support. I asked her why I couldn't come along to meet him. She laughed and said, he's already embarrassed having me around. He doesn't need a stranger too. The more I pushed, the more defensive she got. One night, I asked if she had feelings for him. She rolled her eyes and snapped, "You sound crazy." That night, she slept in the guest room. I stayed awake in our bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to decide whether I was crazy, or just finally seeing things for what they were. The next few days were a blur of pretending everything was normal. We still had dinner together. She still kissed me on the cheek before leaving in the morning. But every time she picked up her phone and smiled at a message, I felt like a ghost in my own home. I started noticing small things, little details I'd never paid attention to before. A new shade of lipstick in her purse. A pair of earrings I'd never seen her wear at work. The subtle smell of cologne I didn't own lingering faintly on her jacket. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was letting stress and overwork poison my perspective. But deep down, something was rotting. I couldn't shake it, and the more I tried to act normal, the more she seemed to drift away, as if she knew I was onto something and the clock was ticking. One night she said she'd be home late again. Josh had a rough day. He was drinking. She didn't want to leave him alone in that state. I nodded slowly and said, "Okay," but the moment she walked out the door, something in me snapped. I didn't want to live with questions anymore. I didn't want to wonder if I was being lied to in my own house. So I waited 30 minutes, got in my car, and drove toward the side of town she'd said Josh lived in. I didn't even have his address. I just remembered the name of his street from one of her offhand comments weeks ago, and I figured if I drove slowly, I'd know it when I saw it. It didn't take long. His apartment complex was barely lit, a low-rise building with faded siding and an empty parking lot. But her car was there, parked right outside. My heart started pounding, not from anger, but from something colder. Something that felt like confirmation. I pulled into a spot across the street and turned off my headlights. Just sat there in the dark watching the second-floor window that was lit up with a soft orange glow. Shadows moved inside. At first it was impossible to tell what I was looking at, just shapes behind thin curtains. But then I saw her silhouette, hair tied back, wine glass in hand, laughing. Then his, closer, leaning in. I wanted to believe it was innocent. That maybe she was just being friendly. That maybe he had no one else. But then the light went off. And all I could do was sit there, in the silence, staring at a window that had just erased the last 6 years of my life. I didn't move. I didn't knock. I didn't take pictures. I just watched the darkness swallow every doubt I had, leaving behind something colder than rage, certainty. That night I didn't sleep. I didn't even go home. I just drove, for hours. No destination, just miles of empty road and the sound of my own breathing. It wasn't until the sky started to turn gray that I realized I couldn't pretend anymore. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't overreacting. I was being replaced. And the person doing it had looked me in the eye just hours ago and said she loved me. The next morning, I walked into our kitchen like nothing had happened. She was already there, dressed in her usual soft hoodie, sipping coffee and scrolling through her phone. When she looked up and smiled, I felt like I was staring at a stranger who knew how to mimic the person I loved. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. Said I hadn't slept well. She said I looked tired. I almost laughed. Tired didn't begin to describe it. I didn't ask her how the night went. I didn't bring up Josh. I didn't mention that I'd driven past his place and seen her car parked out front, or that I'd watched the light in his apartment go dark. I just let her talk. She told me he was doing a little better, and that she was glad she could help. I asked her if she thought it was sustainable, spending so much time with someone so emotionally fragile. She tilted her head and said I sounded bitter. I smiled and said, "Just concerned." That afternoon, I called in sick and worked from home. But what I really did was dig. I looked through credit card statements, ride-sharing receipts, calendar invites. I didn't want to violate her privacy. I wanted the truth. I wanted something that would put an end to the gaslighting swirl in my head, one way or the other. That's when I found it. An auto-generated hotel confirmation email in the trash folder. Dated last week. 2 nights booked under Josh's name, paid with her card. It wasn't a business hotel. It was a spa resort, complete with couples massage options and champagne delivery. I didn't confront her that night either. I wasn't ready. I needed a plan. I needed to control the narrative before it controlled me. So I waited and watched. Over the next few days, I let her dig herself deeper. I asked small questions just to hear the lies pile up. "How's Josh doing?" "Rough still, can't eat." "Are you going to check on him again?" "Yeah, he's not in a good place. I'll probably swing by after work." I nodded, let her go. But this time, I followed her again. She didn't go to Josh's apartment. She didn't even try to fake it. She drove across town to a boutique hotel and parked in the underground garage. I waited 5 minutes, walked in through the back, and stood in the lobby, just far enough behind her that she wouldn't notice. She laughed while talking to the receptionist, pulled out a card, then took an elevator to the 3rd floor. Alone, for now. I didn't follow her up. I already knew what I needed to know. What I didn't know was how I was going to handle it. I sat in my car outside the hotel for nearly an hour, thinking about all the ways I could blow it up. Call her, text her, walk in with a camera, post something online, but none of it felt satisfying. None of it would undo what she'd done, and none of it would give me back the version of her I used to believe in. So I drove home and started writing. The next day, I waited for her to lie to me one last time. She came home just before dinner, same routine, same fake smile, same innocent tone in her voice. She kissed me on the cheek, said, "Sorry I'm late. Josh had a rough day again." I looked up from my laptop and said, "Rough day, huh?" She nodded without hesitation, already moving toward the fridge like nothing was wrong. I stood up, walked over, placed my phone on the counter between us, pressed play. The hotel lobby footage. Her voice with the receptionist, the timestamp matching the exact hour she told me she was comforting a friend. Her face didn't fall immediately. It froze, like her system glitched and didn't know how to respond. Then the panic set in. She tried to laugh it off, said it must have been out of context, that I misunderstood. I didn't say a word. I just opened my drawer and handed her the printed email confirmation from the trash folder. 2 guests, spa weekend, booked under Josh's name, billed to her card. Her voice cracked. She started with denial, then tears, then the excuses. It wasn't serious. It didn't mean anything. I just felt alone. You've been so distant lately. I listened. Calm, silent, unblinking. Not because I wasn't angry, but because I was done. The anger had come and gone. What was left now was just truth. Cold, sharp, and irreversible. She asked if we could talk. I said we already were. She begged me not to make any decisions yet. I said I already had. She asked if we could work through this. I asked her what part of lying to my face for weeks she thought we could work through. And then she said something I'll never forget. I did it because he made me feel seen. That was the moment it all snapped into focus. It wasn't about Joshua, it was never about him. It was about her. About whatever was broken inside her that made betrayal feel like attention, and lies feel like validation. And I finally understood that no amount of love I gave would ever fix that. I didn't yell. I didn't ask for more details. I just opened the door and said, "You can pack tonight. I'll be gone in the morning." And I walked out. No closure. No final kiss. No slow goodbye. Just the sound of the door closing behind me, and the beginning of a silence I could finally trust.